First I said hello, and then the next question is, any new dance moves since I've been with you last?
You know, I just want to say that we were kind of in a slump until I was dancing on the show. My poll numbers skyrocketed after that. Everybody saw me bust a move on Ellen. That's all it took.
I'm glad I could help. That's fantastic to know that that's all it takes.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And welcome to Crosstalk on VCY America. Jim Schneider with you today, and certainly the infamy of this day here, 9/11, will never be erased from our minds here, as no doubt you recall where you were at the time that you heard the announcements of the attack upon America. And certainly our heart's prayer continues to go out to those families of victims and to the nation as a whole. Certainly, it was a joy to hear how many were seeing the need to turn back to God once again after this incident on 9/11, but how discouraging to see how so many have abandoned God and His Word and biblical principles since the days, not too many days after 9/11 occurred. And certainly our thoughts will never be erased of what took place in the state back in 2001. Certainly, we also look forward here to the future as well, to the issues that we are confronted with daily, and we look once again at the fact that we're within about 55 days of a very important day here in America again that will determine how it is that we respond toward terrorism. How do we respond toward the issues that affect us as a nation, whether it be matters of national defense or whether they be matters of moral defense. And certainly as we think wholeheartedly about the upcoming election, the importance to be knowledgeable of the issues at hand that we're voting on, who the candidates are, what are the beliefs, the principles, the practices, their backgrounds, and those types of issues. And certainly we're going to delve into that topic once again here today. It's our privilege to have with us Floyd Brown. Floyd is a co-author of Obama Unmasked, Did Slick Hollywood Handlers Create the Perfect Candidate? He is an author, speaker, and businessman with a weekly syndicated column. He has appeared on Fox News, CNN, CBS Evening News, ABC's Good Morning America, Today Show, and on the list goes. And he has been served as executive director of Young America's Foundation that saved Ronald Reagan's ranch. In 1988, he formed Citizens United and served as its chairman until 2007. And it's so nice to have you, Floyd, with us today on Crosstalk.
Well, it's great to be with you, and you are so right. This is a day that all Americans take to just reflect upon those very dangerous attacks that happened. And I watched, as many Americans did this morning, as people were reading the names of the lost at Ground Zero, and your hearts couldn't go out to those families that are still grieving from that very, very vicious terrorist attack.
Yeah, it's something we won't forget, and we continue to wonder how vulnerable America is, and certainly who the next commander-in-chief is going to have an impact upon this nation as well.
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons why I wrote this book, Obama Unmasked, because when I launched into my research back really in January, I didn't know a lot about Barack Obama, and I felt that the mainstream media wasn't giving us information that was absolutely vital for us to make informed decisions as Americans. And so I thought, well, if the mainstream media is not going to do their job and share this information, then I need to dig it up and help share it with as many of my fellow citizens as I possibly can.
Now, as you listen today, friends, some of you are going to agree, some of you are going to disagree with the information. I want to remind you, Crosstalk does not endorse candidates. We do provide information, though, pertaining to the candidates and the issues involved. Somebody would say, why another book on Barack Obama? Haven't there been other books that have come out to share his background on those issues?
Yeah, no, there's been some great books, Obama Nation, The Case Against Barack Obama, and then my book, Obama Unmasked, I think they all take a little bit different snapshot in view. I tended to focus on the way that Hollywood has been involved in crafting this campaign. David Axelrod, who is the manager of the Obama campaign, he has said from the very beginning that they wanted to lead with biography. And the reason is because, Barack Obama doesn't have an extensive record as somebody who's been involved in government. He's been in the U.S. Senate, only about 2 years when he decided to run for president. And, he's closing on 3.5 years now. But they focused on biography, the extraordinary story of Barack Obama. And they've shared that story repeatedly with Americans, yet I think that the story that they're sharing is really a made-for-TV movie. It's not an accurate depiction of who Barack Obama is. For example, let me just give you one quick example here. They say repeatedly during this time period, they said he was raised with heartland values of Kansas. Well, I have about as much connection to Kansas as Barack Obama does. That means that when my family headed west as part of the Great Westward Migration, they passed through Kansas, or they spent a little bit of time in Kansas. And same thing happened with his family. He was actually born in Hawaii. His mother grew up in the Seattle area, went to Mercer Island High School in Seattle. And yet the values that his family had were anything but what we would consider traditional Kansas values. His mother was an avowed atheist from the time she was in high school, and she never believed in God. And her grandparents were Unitarian Universalists and did attend that type of church, but it has what I would not call a Christian theology. In fact, it denies the divinity of Christ and other orthodox teachings of Christianity. So he talks about these Midwestern values, but when you get under the surface, what you find out is they're not traditional values at all. Not only was his mother an atheist, but his father was Islamic, and then his stepfather was Islamic. And so for at least the first 10 years of his life, he didn't attend Sunday school like most Americans. He attended the mosque. He lived during most of that time, he lived in Indonesia, in Jakarta. And in his early school years, in the schools there in Indonesia, he went to 2 different schools, he would traditionally go through about 2 hours of daily Quranic teaching a day. That's one of the reasons why last year he was able to quote the complete Islamic call to prayer in perfect Arabic for Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times. In fact, Nicholas Kristof was so impressed by his ability to speak Arabic and say the call to prayer that he even commented on the accent as being excellent. And so when you hear the Obama campaign talk about these American values and these traditional values and these Kansas Midwestern values, don't just listen to those words. Find out what those values are, and I think you will agree with me, and that is they're not Kansas values, they're not Christian values, they're not even American values, and that's one of the reasons why I chose the title, Obama Unmasked.
Now, Floyd, no doubt you heard the ABC interview with George Stephanopoulos, in which we have the so-called Freudian slip, in which Barack Obama referred to his Muslim religion and then was corrected to say Christian religion.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that has not come my Christian faith.
Do you believe that was a slip, or was there something underneath that?
Well, I have never contended that he is a Muslim today, but he most definitely grew up a Muslim. And, I believe him when he says he's converted to this Christianity, or at least the form of Christianity that they call Black liberation theology, that was articulated by Jeremiah Wright and the Trinity Church. But so I don't think he's Islamic now, but he most definitely was raised Islamic and would have been inculcated with Islamic values as a child.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America.